anger.
It is Tuesday, October 22nd, and we get hoops starting tonight. We get Warriors hoops starting on Wednesday night, and that's why it's time to say hello to our good friend Cyrus. Not just here on the Plus, we're over on Golden Days as well, as you can see. Co-branding.
Yes,
Look
yes,
at that,
sir.
Cyrus, buddy.
I like it.
Great to see you at Media Day. It is good to see you, brother. How are you, man?
Again, we were talking about this before we started recording. I'm live the bachelor life, dude. I live the Warriors, like, obsessed. That's my life. That's my career. That's my profession. So with that said, a third of the year, I am up till like 3 a.m, and I'm getting used to this new schedule. So 11 a.m., which is your start time. I know you and Larry do like a 9 a.m. show. This is insane to me, but I'm rolling. I'm up. I'm energized. Today's opening day. It's weird that the Warriors are not part of the opening day ceremonies. It's a sign of their slight fall in the standings of prestige in the NBA. But today's opening day, and for the Warriors, it starts tomorrow. How are you doing, brother? How are you? Do people ask you that enough?
Let me tell you, no one cares. Nobody cares.
I do.
How I'm doing. No. Let me tell you, it's going to take a couple of months for us to get a feel for this team and this season. We're going to have to watch it all start playing out. And those couple of months while the NBA is doing its figuring it out are probably the most important months for the Warriors, because I think they need to get a jump start on the league to start stacking some wins that they're going to need a little bit later on. And they're going to do that with defense and effort and some internal knowledge of how this league works. And so a really good start is what's needed. And let me tell you, a really good start is needed around here, Cyrus, because the 49ers didn't get that. I need a 24-hour break from the 49ers.
Good.
I'm so
yes, you
happy
do.
we have something other than that team to talk about here. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know the direction that this Warriors season goes in, but it's traveling down the interesting highway. This is going to be a fascinating year. And what I think is going to make it really interesting is it's going to be interesting for basketball reasons, not the drama reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it's not the where is Wiggins, Draymond suspended again, Klay Thompson is pouting in a shell of himself, and you can tell he's unhappy. This has been a team that has cloaked itself in so much drama. I feel like we're going to just get back to basketball, and that's got to be good on a lot of levels.
Oh, hell yeah. And so far, so good. The Warriors had a 6-game preseason, and I'm going to get more into that after we pay our bills. Damon, you got sponsors? I've got sponsors. I got to get this read in the beginning of the show. So my program, Golden Days, is brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting, every stat, matchup breakdown, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games, with the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, Major League Baseball, playoffs. Oh my God, the World Series. I'm sure I don't know if you're talking baseball, but Dodgers, Yankees, NHL is about to start. The NBA starting today. You can bet on the election. And when the game's over, head on over to their online casino where you can kick back and enjoy a casino ambiance while playing some blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slot games. So head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline. The game starts here, Damon. You have sponsors, right? You have Ike's.
Oh, come on. Well, first of all, you even know it. We don't even have to say it. There he is. That's the man, the myth, the legend himself. Let me tell you right now, you go to Ike's and you get yourself signed up for that Love Rewards program. You get a free sandwich when you sign up. You can win chips. You can win drinks. There's over 100 locations. It's the best sandwich you could ever want. And if you didn't want that sandwich, there's 700 other sandwiches to order right at Ike's. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to be happy with no matter what you get from my good friend. Thank you so much to Ike for sponsoring us. Remember that if you sign up for that Love Rewards program, you could win a trip for two to New Orleans to a very large football game that will be played in the month of February. And I don't know if the 49ers are going to be there or not, but you could be if you start eating at Ike's. And of course, our boys at the Dubliner, let me cordially invite you. You weren't able to make it last time. November 3rd, the bye week, the Sunday, we're going to be getting together for Plus Mania 5, the Plusening. It's going to be happening at the Dubliner. Cyrus, I hope you can maybe make it up. Again, it starts at noon. I know that sounds like it's 7 a.m. to you, but it's a noon start time. Games are going to be underway. Fellowship will be had. Guinness will be poured. Hot dogs will be eaten. Happy people getting together, sharing like-minded ideas.
I'm not going to say 100% I'm in. 90% I'm in. Though. I mean,
90% is going to get trumped by the 10%. I was tired. We're not going to.
Well, here's the thing. I'm now in Warriors mode. The last time you had this event, it was the Warriors off season.
Yes,
which is such a slow, dead time, and my energy kind of like goes with the Warriors. So at that point, I was in incognito mode, man. I was on hiatus. I'm now revving back up. I left the house for Warriors Media Day. I even got a question in to Jonathan Kuminga. Damon, you and I were both in the media section there.
About his dogs. Like
about his dogs.
Well, you asked about his dogs, and I like took 2 steps away from you. I'm like, I'm not with him.
Hey, come on. That was a good thing, man. That was a positive. It's good to lighten the mood and lighten the room. I didn't want to be like every other person asking the same question 100 times over. Plus, dude, I don't know. I don't know if you're a dog person, but I'm a dog person. I love dogs. And,
absolutely dog person.
And a lot of people are. And Rocco was leaving. I just feel like it's a good thing to lighten the mood in the room sometimes, asking a question like that. But nonetheless, I'm leaving the house. I'm back to being like, extroverted, outgoing, not a homebody. So yeah, I might make it, man. I might actually do that. I'm still committed to the Jaeger bombs that you and I hopefully will do when I make that trip. So
just show up because of all the motherfuckers. I'm the motherfuckest. Come on in. I'll do a Jaeger bomb with you. You know that. Come on in. Cyrus, hopefully you can make it to Plus Mania at the Dubliner, but it's great to be with you. Again, your channel is growing. It's going to be a huge season for you. Golden days. Make sure you're liked and subscribed. We're approaching 25,000 subscribers over here on the Plus. Get on in while you can. Come on in. Be part of the first 25,000 as we grow over here. Thank you so much for being here. And look, let's just get into it. Steph Curry, one of the greatest gifts the Bay Area has been ever given in terms of sports celebrity, champion, starting season 16 in Portland on Wednesday. And for this year to even be pointed in the right direction, I mean, Curry must maintain. He needs to be at 25 points per night, Cyrus, and he's got to play at least 70, 75 games for the Warriors to be who they are this year. Do you think he's still got it in him? I don't know how many great seasons of Warriors basketball Steph Curry really has left. Do we get one of the last one of them this year?
Well, I'm gonna push back on the notion, not you, but there's a notion out there that the preseason doesn't mean much, if anything. And I strongly disagree with that idea. To me, that the preseason reveals a lot, especially for a team with a lot of new players. And here's the conclusion I've come up with leaving the preseason, the regular season starting now. The Warriors, this is not hyperbolic, Damon, are the deepest team in the NBA. The deepest. They like the fact that Lindy Waters was told by Steve Kerr a day or two ago that he's not a part of the rotation. And Lindy Waters proved in just 6 preseason games, he belongs in this game. He can actually play, and he's relegated to the bench. Your 12th man is likely going to be Gary Payton II, or maybe Buddy Hield. DeAnthony Melton can actually play. Slow-mo is immediately an impact player. This team's loaded with ball handlers. They're loaded with shooters. Moses Moody got that extension for a very good reason. Speaking of the preseason meaning something, if he didn't have that preseason, he's not getting that extension. So this is a very deep team. I don't think Steph has to play 75, 80. I mean, I would like it. I think it would help. But this team is set up, I think, largely so that Steph doesn't have to play that much. It doesn't have to wear on his body and expend energy that he could save for the postseason. When you have DeAnthony Melton, Brandon Pajemski, Moody, Buddy Hield, you got a deep backcourt, Moses Moody. Like, this is a team that can survive some games without Stephen Curry. They're not designed to sustain Draymond Green missing a lot of games. That's a different story. Their front court's still very thin, and that's why we just learned from Draymond Green on his show that they tried to get Karl Anthony Towns this offseason. They tried to get Larry Markkanen in this offseason. Paul George. Their front court is still lacking a little bit, but the wing position, the backcourt, it's deep, it's stacked. They could survive without Steph, but Draymond, to me, is another story.
one of the biggest questions I need to see answered with my own two eyes before I really do buy into they're the deepest team in the NBA.
They are.
Are they the deepest team in the NBA because they're actually the deepest team in the NBA, or are they the deepest team in the NBA because the Warriors' 8-9 rotation players have yet to clearly be defined? So there's going to be a game of player rotation go fish going on, which creates an illusion of depth that is more, the Warriors don't have the best starting five in the league anymore, and they don't really know 5 through 9 and who they are, and they're going to extend it out to 10, 12 guys because they're just, like I said, playing an awful lot of rotation go fish early on. Are they deep because they really are that deep, or are they deep out of, well, we don't know who fits with who yet?
Well, no, they're deep. I think they're legitimately deep. I think this preseason, again, it was 6 games where most of the players were taking it seriously because they themselves were fighting for these positions, right? So you kind of got a glimpse of who they really are. And the depth is there in the sense of positions, in sense of rotations. Like your starting center, even though it's not official yet, and I don't know why it's not official yet, but Trayce Jackson-Davis should and likely will be your starting center. And he belongs, dude. This kid.
If Indiana can have a football team in the top 15, they can have a starting center for the Golden State Warriors too.
Absolutely. And so Trayce Jackson-Davis is your established center. Kevon Looney is your established backup center, where he belongs. That is where he should be at this stage of his career. And even though he can't defend anyone, almost literally, like anybody he defends on the court, just watch for yourself with your own eyes if you don't believe me. They're scoring at will when he defends. But he's been oftentimes set up playing defense against starting centers, top-tier bigs. As a backup center where you're playing against backups, you're much more suited. And so Looney, I think, will be fine as your backup 5. Kyle Anderson's your backup 4. That's not a bad place to be in. Your backup 3 is Moses Moody. I don't think that's a bad place to be in. I haven't even mentioned Andrew Wiggins, who could be your backup 3 or your starting 2, which could be a very strong possibility. And then you look at your 2. Your 2 is mostly established. That's the one weird part where I don't think there's a set starter yet, or a set pecking order, a hierarchy, if you will. But it looks like DeAnthony Melton will likely be your starting 2, if not Wiggins. You've got Brandon Pajemski as your 2. You've got Buddy Hield as your 2. And then your point guard position is Stephen Curry and any one of those 2s. Gary Payton II is going to get some minutes. This is deep 1 through 5, Damon. I'm the only part of this I'm not sure about yet is the front court. I don't know yet if when you're playing a team like the Lakers or the Nuggets or anyone with an elite front court, I still don't know if defensively they can hold their own. But they're going to put up points against anyone on any night. Kuminga's already shown me he's ready to take that next leap where he can score 20 a game and hopefully earn that contract that he wants. And we could put that in the past. I'm convinced, dude. I mean, they're a playoff team. Are they a championship contender? Yeah, I'm going to hit my own brakes on that. But They're legit, dude. They're going to be fun to watch. As Stephen Curry said, they're relevant. I think that's the most accurate way to put it. They're not going to be a bad team. I don't know if they're going to be an elite championship contender yet. That's where one more move might be needed. But I'm optimistic, not because I like this team, but because I like the makeup and the depth of this team.
I think that there are moving parts that got to prove themselves to me. Be as confident in this because, to me, one of the scariest sentences that might be true is this season goes as far as Andrew Wiggins allows it to go.
Ooh.
I think that he is a player that has been an incredible disappointment throughout his career. We all know that he is wildly talented, which, emphasizes why it's so disappointing so often.
Right.
The 2 years in a row of the paid time off Wiggins, PTO Wiggins, to be with his ailing father. His father passed away. Hopefully that grants the entire family some peace that allows him to really get involved, and he recommits this year. I think he understands that his place in the NBA is a little more rocky than it's been, and he needs to really bring it. But they've been saying that about him since high school. And the amount of times that he really brings it and shows everyone that, I could dunk from the fucking 3-point line. I got that much talent. But he doesn't. I mean, are we going to get a really locked in, wanting it Wiggins, or are we going to get a jogging between the free throw lines, taking way too many threes for a guy shooting 28% from downtown Wiggins? Let me see which one of those we get before I make any declarations about how the year is going to go.
That's fair. And the biggest issue I have with the Wiggins part of this, because it's a huge mystery. You heard Kerr say in the offseason he wants Wiggins to take 6 3-point attempts a game, which may or may not be a good thing. I don't know yet. But the Wiggins part of it, you're right. It's wishful thinking that we're going to see the 2022 version, the only version of 10 years of Andrew Wiggins that lived up to the hype as a number one pick, right? Every year, either he was putting up empty points in Minnesota, or he was just being a letdown year after year here in Golden State. It wasn't just the last 2 years. It was also the years before the championship season. He was showing signs. He would have good nights, but it wasn't like he was lighting it up even those first 2 years.
15 great days in the NBA. Yeah. And luckily for the Golden State Warriors, 10 of those 15 days were when they were playing the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals.
And the Mavericks. I mean, that whole postseason, he was out of his mind. Like, he was averaging almost 9 rebounds a game. That was absurd. And again, that's where, like, my criticism of Kerr, there's been a few points, obviously, of contention I've had with Kerr. One of them is Kerr thinking that Wiggins is just going to revert back to this 2022 form, and the loyalty that he has to these title playing members, like the members of that title team that he has this fealty to. It's a weakness of his loyalty to these players. And the one hope I have, and it's a hope, it's wishful thinking again, is if Wiggins continues to show this regressed version, the version of Wiggins that every year since he's been on the Warriors, his point production has declined every year. It's a steady line. There was one where it just kind of evened out, but even the 1 year where it went down like 0.1 still went down. So I just hope that Kerr has the gall to take Wiggins out if that's the version we get, because this team is deep enough.
Well, that's the thing. If you're as deep as you say you are, Steve, that switch is now available to you. Will he pull it? How often will he pull it? We'll find out about that. Cyrus, I'm sure you've already seen this. Again, you cover the team, so you're all over everything.
Yes, sir.
But I want to play this back and forth with Steve Kerr and Tim Kawakami. This is less than 2 minutes, but it's a really good back and forth about the depth of the Golden State Warriors. Here we go.
And Gary Payton, kind of like, slash in a role.
Is that your, so you're 9?
You're 9, yeah. I mean, the way you've been playing it, just looking from afar, not that I have any
And then who's 10 and 11?
Moses, and then you have, well, I can't even count it. Okay, you got Looney, Hield, then Pajemski or Melton, whoever doesn't start. You got Kuminga, that's 9. GP2 would be 10. Moody 10.
Keep going.
Yeah.
I'm kind of messing with you a little bit, but I want you guys to know the game I play in my head every day, and I can tell you right now, Lindy Waters has had a fantastic camp. I think he's second on our team in plus minus over the course of the training camp games. Guy can help us win a game. Those are the only 2 guys I would tell you right now are not going to be in the rotation Wednesday. I've told them both that. They know that. That leaves 12.
Yeah, I forgot Kyle Henry.
Yeah. So there's 12. So we have a great problem on our hands. We have incredibly deep team, but just do me a favor when you write, after Wednesday night, your stories about the game, or if you ask me after the game why I didn't play so and so, just ask, or please tell me who I should have taken out of the rotation, and then I'll have more clarity.
And if there's one thing, Cyrus, that Steve Kerr is used to, is no matter what level success his team is finding, people complain about his minutes distribution. It happened during a gold medal run in the Olympics. Everyone was upset about Jason Tatum's minutes or lack thereof. So there really is no escaping, the microscope of everybody examining who gets what minutes and who how they're distributed. But I'll tell you, Kerr is better than even his worst critics want to give him credit for at managing these things, because no matter how frustrated fans get, it doesn't seem to really infect what's going on in his locker room. And that's, I think, part of the guy's mastery as a head coach. He keeps the team on an even keel, and nobody really steps out of line complaining about their minutes. And that might be negatively affecting Moses Moody, and we'll get to that in just a second. But what do you think of Kerr and Kawakami's back and forth there?
I played that on yesterday's episode, which is, and it's worthy of a replay because that's a good back and forth. And my immediate reaction was, if Kerr was, and I know he was saying all that in jest, but if he was genuine, I'm showing up. I'm going to show up to those press conferences. I'm like, Steve, I'll happily engage in a back and forth with Steve Kerr about his rotations because a lot of times it's nonsensical. Damon, no, I don't remember anyone questioning his rotations until the year after the title season. And part of that was he had the right players. It was very easy, right? It was an established starting five. You had Iguodala coming off the bench, Livingston coming off the bench, David West. You were just stacked. You knew who your players were. And then starting with 2022-23, you suddenly started seeing Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome and all these nonsensical. And it was even a little further back than that. Like Michael Mulder should have never been playing legitimate minutes. Brad Wanamaker should not have been playing legitimate minutes. But that was a rebuild year, so no one cared.
Probably
in 2023, when people cared and paid attention, that's when it started happening. So I don't share the same optimism about Kerr in terms of like him having this mastery of rotations and everything, but he is a good coach. It's just, I don't think he's a great coach. Like he's not on the Mount Rushmore. I don't think he's sniffing that, but
he's one of the greatest winners in the history of the sport, Cyrus.
Well, again,
you walk around him as a player, he's an absolute winner. As a coach, he's a winner. On the international stage, he drips in gold. Like, what are you talking about?
Because, with the rhetoric
of all time.
With that rhetoric, I mean, John Paxson deserves as much credit as Steve Kerr for those first three titles. You know, it's like, he was averaging 3 points a game for those Spurs title teams. Like, a lot of people would be getting rings if you're playing alongside Jordan and Duncan and you're coaching Stephen Curry. I want to see Steve Kerr get the most out of his team the way Eric Spoelstra does. I haven't seen that yet. I've seen a lot of underachieving when the roster is not super stacked. And that's why I question it a little bit. Like you look at the Olympics, for example, the decision to not play Jason Tatum, which did upset Tatum, and to not put Jaylen Brown on the team upset Jaylen Brown. And those two are going to be on a vengeance tour this year because of that. And that was a Steve Kerr genesis. The point is, if Stephen Curry did not go apeshit in that Serbia game, it's a whole different conversation. It's lovely having Stephen Curry as your guy. It's lovely playing alongside Jordan and Duncan. That's the only reason why I'm not all up on Kerr like a lot of other people are, because he's been in the right place at the right time better than anyone else ever.
Steve Kerr wins an NBA title with a group of fucking bums from the YMCA. You're not impressed?
Well, that would be impressed.
Find me the single successful coach in NBA history who doesn't lean on his big dog all the time.
No, I don't doubt that. But again, like Phil did it with different teams and different players. Popovich at least like was able to do it with two iterations of superstar players. I want to see Steve do it with someone with new players. I've also said this as well. If they get a fifth championship, because that's been my biggest critique for the players that Steve Kerr has had, he should have 5 titles right now, not 4. I know I'm nitpicking between 4 and 5, but I also paid this much attention to the nuance, man. I'm obsessed with the Warriors, and I pay attention to literally the minutes, the seconds people play. I think they should have had 5 by now. The fact they have 4.
Steve Kerr's fault or Draymond Green's fault?
Is whose fault? Who's the first player?
Draymond Green.
He's a part of it for sure. Yeah. And that's actually, Draymond Green is where I give Steve Kerr credit, because he's managed Draymond Green the same way Phil managed Dennis Rodman. I'm not saying Steve Kerr's a bad coach. I'm just saying I don't defer to him for every judgment. Like when Steve Kerr says that he relies on his gut to make decisions, I'm saying his gut's been wrong quite a few times. The players on this team, though, he's got such a deep team, Damon. My optimism comes from Mike Dunleavy Jr., who I commend him, man. He's doing a great job so far. I tip my cap. Lindy Waters was a fantastic pickup. All 3 of those free agent signings and the sign and trades. Kyle Anderson immediately fits in. High IQ player who can rebound, who can pass. He's never going to light up the box score, but in the final preseason game, he led all Warriors players in net rating with plus 32. He can play. This team's deep, man. DeAnthony Melton is you and I remember like that announcement was made during our live show. And you and I were both a little skeptical about that because this was a 6'3" guard who missed over half the season last year. But so far, so damn good. I'm backing off on the criticism there. We shall see, man. What did you think, by the way, about Draymond Green's comments? He said a lot of interesting things. He now hosts his podcast with Baron Davis. And did you hear all the stuff he said, like about the Warriors and
No,
Like, so
I-
this is,
I-
and
saw some
let me
clips.
turn around and ask you a couple questions here because I'd love to get your feedback.
Yeah.
Draymond Green said that the Warriors were in fact pursuing Paul George, were in fact pursuing Lauri Markkanen, did in fact pursue Karl Anthony Towns, and what he said about Cat makes perfect sense. The Timberwolves had no interest in what the Warriors were offering, which makes sense because the Timberwolves wanted a Julius Randle type back. The Warriors could not offer that, so it was dead on arrival in terms of discussions. But the Paul George thing was very real. And what he said was, which was fascinating, is that the Lauri Markkanen part of it would have been very real if they had acquired Paul George. The plan was to get Paul George and Lauri Markkanen and then go all in on a title this year. But when the Paul George thing fell apart, the rest of it fell apart. What's your reaction to that? Because that would have been a stacked team. You would not have had Kuminga, but you would have had Paul George and Lauri Markkanen. That's wild.
First of all, if you had Paul George, you wouldn't even have had Paul George because having Paul George means all he's doing is not playing for your team.
Yeah.
You know that the NBA season is here, folks. Paul George has already been ruled out of the first week of it. I mean, come on. I think Paul George is wildly talented, but he's wildly unavailable, so I am not wildly interested in that. The Lauri Markkanen thing that you and I discussed, the trade possibility, that is interesting. And all I can say is that Brandon Podziemski, I think, has maybe as much weight attached to his season because, he was the guy that was untradeable. He was the guy that the Warriors refused to include him for the deal for Markkanen. So you're basically telling me this guy's going to be an all-star. This guy's going to give season-altering level performances on a near nightly basis, and that's how much you believe in him. So I really hope the Warriors were right about that. I think Podziemski is a very good jack of all trades. Is he more than that, though? I mean, all court, all over, get two-way player, whatever you want to call him. Let's see what he becomes with that three ball. And then we'll talk about what Brandon Podziemski can really do this year. What do you think is the Warriors' best five-man lineup? I'm not even saying who are your starters, who are your closers, but it's up to you. We got to play to 11 for the life of your dog, Cyrus. You get to put 5 Warriors on the court against a team that you haven't even met yet. You just pick 5 Warriors. Who are your 5?
Well, great question. Because to answer that, you're basically asking who's the closing 5, right? Because that's who you would put out there as your best 5. And as also, if for people that don't know, the closing 5 is always who the coach trusts the most on your team. Before I answer that, I just want to address
but I think there might be a little, are you up 10? Do you need more of a defensive lineup out there?
Yeah.
Are you up 8 and looking to hold on? So what game are you closing? I think will affect the closing lineup.
That's fair. So let's say for the sake of this argument, the closing lineup, it's a tie game, 2 minutes to play, right? And you're playing, I don't know, Minnesota, hypothetically, Western Conference Finals, Game 7. I first want to say SF Indigo, I don't hate Steve Kerr. Hate's a strong word. I have nothing personal against the man. It's just he's made a lot of decisions that are very questionable. Because to me, a head coach, his biggest power is gatekeeping minutes for individuals, right? You have the power to decide who plays when. And I sometimes question his decision-making there. I don't question his system. I think he's brilliant as an offensive mind. Defense is another story, but the point is I don't hate him. I just sometimes question his decisions. He's the head coach of a team. That's part of our job to do that. With that said, you're close at the closing 5, Steph, obviously, Draymond, obviously. I leave Trace Jackson-Davis in there for defense. I leave Jonathan Kuminga in there, and Moses Moody rounds on my top 5, man. That is who I think are the 5 best players. I know that's a different answer than what a lot of other people will say, but that's who I roll with, man. You get size, you get enough shooting to space the floor, you get enough penetrators to collapse the defense, to open up outside shooting. That's my 5, man. Who's yours?
I think it's Steph, Draymond, Trace Jackson-Davis, Wiggins, and Podziemski.
Ooh, okay.
Well, I mean, and I'm almost saying it better be Podziemski. Podziemski better be the guy that you're leaning on as one of your 5 best players because you refuse to trade him for the guy who absolutely would have been in your closing 5, right? So I really hope for him and for the Warriors' overall, pulling the puppet strings of how an NBA team fits together. I hope that he fills that bill. Now, Kuminga and Hield and Moody, it'll be really interesting to see them. And look, let's talk about the fact that Moody gets paid 3 years, $39 million. Is that it? I mean, you want to talk about like reasonable all the way around. I mean, I think that Moses Moody has got to be pretty happy with that number because he hasn't had much of a chance to prove he's worth much more than that. And the argument that he's not proven that he's even worth that right now could maybe be out there for him. So he gets, lifetime security with this contract. And it also shows that he's very comfortable with the situation that he's in. He likes being around the Warriors. He clearly likes Steve Kerr, and he's not angry at the way Kerr has managed his career to this point because he had a walk away moment and he chose, he's not walking away. He's probably, though, been such a good soldier. He's fought against himself a little in a league where the squeaky wheel sometimes does get some grease. He is the least squeaky wheel in the machine. He's never lobbied for more minutes. He's never pouted. He's never talked to the team through his agent. He's never Moody. Yeah.
Yes, he has. That's just he did. Like last year when Kuminga came out and was public through his agent, his proxy, that he wasn't happy about his role and wanted to trade. Moses Moody almost the exact same day did the same thing. I just want to make it clear, like he wasn't happy either. It's all a happy ending because
but here's the thing. First of all, it was just Moses Moody, so it didn't ping on anyone's radar, and no one really gave a shit.
Yeah,
right?
no one cared. No one cared.
It didn't matter. Moses Moody wasn't in position to demand or command anything outside of inside the locker room because they're the only ones who are watching him because he doesn't play beyond practice. You know what I mean? I mean, I think he is somebody who, in the right situation, could have absolutely flourished into a bona fide NBA rotation player at worst, if not a really good starter.
Agreed.
And we'll see what he becomes. We'll see what he's allowed to become this year. But the piece obviously fits. Kuminga, this is fascinating. This, to me, is the most fascinating equation on the team. What do you think's more likely to happen? Kuminga becomes a clear number 2 option behind Steph Curry and goes on to flirt with 20 a night and big offseason dollars waiting for him as a restricted free agent. Or he is pouting on the bench, upset about his minutes by the All-Star game.
Well, Shams Charania reported yesterday, and I'd love to get your thoughts on him being at ESPN and that whole the whole Woj retiring, because I love discussing the media behind the scenes stuff. It's fascinating to me, all these ridiculous egos and the drama that goes on that's unnecessary. But I digress. The Kuminga part of this is very interesting because, like you said, they did not come to an agreement. He's made it very clear he wants the max. He wants the maximum amount of dollars.
Look, hold on. You and I might want the max. We're not getting it because we haven't proven that, and neither has he. I mean, Kuminga is still a raw, unpolished gem, but a max player. Like if I were Mike Dunleavy, I might invite him to get the fuck out of my office if he uses the word max. Get out of here.
His rationale is looking at other players in his draft class who are similarly have not proven a thing, but stupidly, other owners have given their players like Franz Wagner the max extension. The max. Cade Cunningham had one good year. He got the max. So that's Kuminga's rationale, and the Warriors aren't buying into it yet, obviously. But look, Kuminga since January last year was averaging 19 points a game. And the work he put in this offseason, you started seeing the results in the preseason by the fact that he shot barely under 50% from 3 in the preseason. And he was putting up a good amount just to prove to people he can shoot now, and his 3-point shots improved. I think, and his ability to attack the rim, I'm already seeing growth there, dude. Everyone likes to talk about spacing as a 3-point shooting thing. Spacing is also a penetrating the paint, collapsing 100%. The defense, opening things up for the outside as well. And Kuminga is gonna do that a lot this year. He's gonna own the rim. He's gonna own the paint. His impact will be felt and seen, and he's gonna get his max next year. I had Eric Pincus of Bleacher Report on my program last week because he's a cap expert. He knows all the numbers, and him and I both agreed it makes no sense to give these young players like the Franz Wagners, the Jalen Suggs, the Cade Cunninghams, the Jalen Green of the Rockets who got a max, and he hasn't proven a thing. It makes no sense to do that because with Kuminga, you let him play out this year. You have him motivated to play for that max deal, and then you give it to him next offseason when he proves.
I mean, here's the thing. I love a guy with something to prove in a contract year. Like you want to pull the best out of a player. That always is a really nice formula to lean into. I guess my question is though, I mean, did the Warriors actually like put 25 million in front of him, 20 to 25 million a year in front of him? And he was like, no. I don't know who's more crazy in that moment. The Warriors even putting that in front of him or him saying no to it. I mean, that is life-altering, changing money. And, you know, you want to talk about a player who's totally dependent on ACL health for his game. You know, I mean, if anything would ever happen to him, his entire career could go in a wonky direction. I wonder how much they really put in front of him to say no to.
That part of it is so sketchy. You're right, man, because one injury and it derails everything. And let's you know, knock on wood for Kuminga.
Knock on it, kids. Of course.
Yeah, because let's hope nothing. But with that said, I mean, Kuminga's clearly betting on himself. I think Kuminga is aware enough, and his agents are aware enough that if, let's say, he continues his progression, he's going to get his money. There are too many teams out there who would offer him that level of cash. I mean, he's still the second youngest player on this team. He just turned 22. We have no idea what his ceiling is. It's going to likely be Jaylen Brown.
I tell you, I'm worried about the dye job. I'm worried about the blonde hair. Look at what happened to Joe Burrow in the Cincinnati Bengals the minute he walked in with his Barbie hair.
It's already. I know. That's okay. No defense.
I don't like it when a man dyes his hair. I'm just going to put that out there.
He's a kid. That's my. And Kuminga's he's a fashion aficionado. Like he goes to the Met Gala type things. Like he's into that. Like he named his two dogs Dior and Prada. Just to give you an idea of
I don't know if he's got taste, if he's just got money, but what he's definitely doing is chasing model pussy. There's no doubt about that.
And I'm not hating on that either. But but regardless, yeah. So that's his thing. You know, we all have our things. I'm not going to judge him for that.
What's better than a model? A supermodel.
Yeah.
Forget about a max, a super max.
Damon, I wish we could like really just be transparent and reveal everything we know behind the scenes, because Kuminga, a lot of these pro athletes, they hit well below their pay grade, if that makes sense. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, three threes together is a 9. Stop it.
One more thing real fast. I forgot to mention.
Line from Jurassic Park. We spent so much time thinking if we could. We didn't stop to think if we should.
Yeah, exactly.
That's well put.
Exactly. But the Shams part of it, I brought him up for a reason, because in his article, he mentioned that one of the things, and this was very fascinating to me, it was like in the 5th paragraph, that one of the things the Warriors are monitoring is the relationship between Kerr and Kuminga in terms of the contract extension they hope to offer him after this season. That's interesting to me. That a source in the Warriors organization would actually tell Shams that. I'm fascinated. Your thoughts?
Thoughts on what? On Shams or just
that line? The fact that you actually have to monitor the relationship between your coach and your player. Like, that's weird to me. I don't know. I don't know if that's weird to you. Maybe it's not, but
well, how about this? What would be weird is if you chose to ignore something that could be a sore spot. So, you know, there is maybe a lost in translation, a lack of patience that is attached to younger players and just the younger generation to begin with. And Steve is definitely not of that cloth. So, you know, I think it's something important to just make sure it's going smooth, because if Kuminga's really getting upset at Kerr, it's not in the way that Kerr is communicating, because Kerr is one of the single greatest sports communicators I've ever been around in all my 20 plus years covering sports. I've never seen a guy more, carefully word things to not offend, to, if he's got big news, he puts it on you lightly. He's
a communication
brimstone guy.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there was some frustration in there, but I don't think the frustration was born out of communication. It was born out of minutes.
Well, let me push back a little bit on that and say this. I think where Kerr failed to me with his communication was letting Kuminga know he has an open door policy. The fact that Kuminga wasn't aware of that, and Kerr, I think, has admitted to a certain extent that he failed in terms of communicating with Kuminga that, look, if you have a problem, don't go to the media. Just come to me. Just let me know. And we forget easily the genesis of where that happened. The catalyst for why Kuminga complained is because of that Nuggets game last year, where Kuminga was held out of the entire second half in a game where the Warriors blew, a 20-point lead, and Jokic hit that game winner at the end. And Kuminga was held out of the entire second half after having a solid first half. That is what drew the ire of Kuminga and drew the ire of people like me, because it made no damn sense. Kerr's one, and it's a flaw, Damon. Kerr's flaw is his loyalty to certain players. He plays favorites sometimes. And this is where this is where I see the difference between Kerr and Phil Jackson, for example. I don't remember ever thinking of a moment in Phil Jackson's entire tenure as a head coach where I second-guessed his decisions. I can't think of one.
Well, you were too young and you weren't really covering the league then, so you weren't asking any Lakers questions.
But I was paying attention like I am now, man. I was an NBA nerd since I was a little kid. I was paying attention, dude. You grew up in the Midwest. Did you ever second-guess Phil?
Grew up on the East Coast, college in the Midwest. But, no, but I don't think that we even discussed the NBA back then like we do now. I mean, I think it's an entirely different conversation around the league. I remember when the thing that we talk most about basketball teams involved the basketball that the teams play. And it feels like that's now like the fourth or fifth topic after we check out all the pregame fits, who's on Twitter, who's fucking warring with who. Like, it's just the amount of noise around basketball now so drowns out a basketball conversation. It's a little weird, and this gets back to who's your favorite media member now.
But the thing with Kerr is, like, there's nothing behind the scenes I think we're criticizing outside of Kuminga complaining publicly, but that also happened even back then. I mean, you'd have players coming out telling reporters that they're pissed off, they want to trade. I mean, trade requests are nothing new. But everything with Kerr is just literally the complaints that is just who he's playing when. And that was never an issue before, and there was kind of moments. Like, for example, people let Kerr off the hook big time when the Warriors were up 3-1 against Cleveland in 2016 and Draymond got suspended ridiculously. That's one of the most egregious things the NBA ever did. But where were the adjustments? Like, I have this list, and I'm going to save the show for if and when Steve Kerr's stock hits rock bottom again, then I'm going to pounce on it. Of Steve Kerr's gut going wrong. That was one example. The Rocket series in 2018 that should not have gone 7 games, wouldn't have gone 7 games if JaVale McGee was getting some actual minutes. There's just little things like that I just don't ever remember needing to nitpick.
I'll just say that your amount of nitpicking hindsight years ago is borderline fucking lunatic. Okay, I love you, buddy.
That's why I do what I do.
I love you, but you're out of your fucking skull. I love you.
I love you, brother. I'm
about to say something that I can't believe that I'm saying out loud, but when you talk about Kerr playing his favorites, the single one of his most favorites of all time is not here to gum up the works any longer. I'm glad Klay Thompson's gone.
Me too.
I'm glad that Klay Thompson's gone. Nothing but respect, nothing but love. God bless you, Klay Thompson. But I have absolutely no idea whether you're going to be a missing piece for the Dallas Mavericks to return to the NBA Finals with, or if you are going to average your least minutes, least impact, least shooting, worst 3-point season of your entire life. If you told me Klay Thompson found a little fountain of youth and had a really nice year, I'd believe you. If you told me the wheels fell off this year and he's a 9 to 11 point per game scorer, I'd believe you.
You were that's eloquent. I agree. It's the Klay Thompson clearly was borderline toxic for this team.
Yeah.
Look, you and I, we go behind the scenes and we see what's happening sometimes. Klay Thompson was a grump. Klay Thompson literally berated a beat writer last year in the locker room who just moments earlier he had agreed to sit down with and do an interview. And then, like a psychopath, just suddenly flipped a switch because he had a bad game and went off on the guy. Like, who are you to make your money talking about me? Who are you to write about me and get a paycheck for that? And just started going off. And he was not in a good headspace.
Yeah.
Dude's got an ego like a lot of these players do. So I'm totally with you, man. It's a good thing he's moved on. And I hope when the statue's built, Rocco is built alongside him. But yeah,
player dogs more than Cyrus. The answer is nobody. This guy is covering the league through the prism of animal care, and it's a unique angle. It really is. It's going to separate you from the rest. By the way, since you did ask about the media, which we pretend to be a part of,
yeah.
what a shame that ESPN has basically just told you, we've invested so many billions of dollars into this league to bring it to you. But we walked away from Woj, who was good at his job. I'm glad that they added Shams, which is the single most obvious replacement of all time. Of course, they went after him. But the fact that there's, no more Ethan Sherwood-Strauss, who's elevated so many conversations. The fact that Zach Lowe got let go. You're letting Zach Lowe go. Here's what Zach Lowe is good at: podcast, writing, in-game analysis, studio work. He literally hits for the broadcasting content creator cycle, and he's got to get let go. I mean, so you can pay Stephen A. Smith, $9 million a year to go, Cowboys lost. I mean, what? The amount of good voices that have been pushed out of the ESPN NBA conversation so they can spend more time on checking WNBA fits is fucking disgusting to me.
It is. And did you see you're absolutely right about all that. Did you see the rant? No, rant's a wrong word. It was just literally a segment of Dan Le Batard immediately after the Woj thing. Did you see that segment where he basically just opened up about what really went down behind the scenes, according to him? But I didn't see anyone dispute it. And according to Dan Le Batard, Adrian Wojnarowski was a somewhat vindictive individual, meaning he knew his power, he knew his place at ESPN. It was near the top of the pyramid, and he had a very good relationship with the president of ESPN. So he had power. But where Woj decided this isn't worth it anymore is him and Shams were not as close as people thought. The rivalry was real behind the scenes. Again, all this is according to Dan Le Batard, and he said this publicly. And so when Shams started coming on Pat McAfee's show regularly, this is Woj's rival now coming on his own network, being a correspondent for a show that he himself is not being invited on. This pissed Woj off, supposedly. Woj went to the president of ESPN and was like, dude, I'm your guy. What are you doing here? And the president of ESPN told him, Dan Iger, my boss, prefers McAfee and lets McAfee do whatever he wants. So basically, Woj realized McAfee's a bigger power player than he is, and he's no longer the top dog. And he was like, I'm out. I'm already. And so that's according to Dan Le Batard. What's your reaction to that?
I believe it, because I know that Woj was, very interested in centralizing all the power that he could and didn't like sharing connections or the stage or bylines with anyone. Ethan Sherwood-Strauss has been through that, power structure of ESPN and CAA and these relationships which dictate, how news gets broken. And he was definitely cantankerous. He was also very good at his job.
Yes, he was.
I thought that he, in a world of unreasonable media members, he was a reasonable media member, which I appreciate now more than ever. But yeah, there's definitely a game at ESPN that will be easier for others to play without a guy like Woj in there. I don't know if he dreamed of being the St. Bonaventure GM. That's what he is now. But hey, you know what? That's where he went to school. So maybe that is a dream job of his. And look, you know what's got to suck? Imagine if you spent 18 hours a day. Let's pretend this DirecTV remote is a phone.
Okay.
Imagine if you had to spend 18 hours a day staring into your phone waiting for breaking news. What did Woj do in his life that wasn't looking directly at his phone, except for when he had to pick up this phone and check this one out too, because he's got that much shit going on. He's that connected.
What's that remote, by the way? What remote is this?
This is a TCL remote. This is a TV remote, not the DirecTV. Everyone's got two remotes. This one turns on.
Do you have DirecTV? Is that what you go with for your coverage?
I still have DirecTV.
Yeah. No, I'm always fascinated with that, because a lot of people have cut cords. A lot of people have taken down the dishes. I'm a Hulu guy. I might switch to YouTube TV, but I respect that. The only reason why I don't still do that is because of the money and the ease. But so I would prefer that. I miss that.
TV guy was because of Big Ten Network, and I had to have Big Ten Network.
Yes,
I had to watch my Hoosiers, and I had to watch all the Indiana games that never made network except for Big Ten Network. So I had to have that. And I know it's now available in other places, but I'm also, the reason why I still have DirecTV, I think more than anything, is because it bothers me that when I get locked into an app, I can't hit the back button to get me through my commercial break. I'm a big flip back guy.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm a big flip back guy. And I got a flip back on DirecTV where I don't get a flip back without opening an app, closing an app, signing in, making sure it's my profile, not the kid's profile or Jillian's profile. And other, and I just want to push one button instead of four.
I hear you.
That lazy.
I hear you, man. I hear you, man. To each their own, man. Well, whatever makes you, whatever, makes you roll with your team. I miss the dish. Or in your DirecTV, all of it, whatever you're rolling with. It's just fascinating to me how all the different places we get our media from now. It's fascinating to me.
I signed up for YouTube TV when the ESPN didn't have the first week of the NFL. And then DirecTV got that deal done. And I told YouTube TV, I'm like, we'll meet again some other day. I'm not going to say anything bad about YouTube TV while we're doing a show here on YouTube.
But you brought up Zach Lowe in terms of a dumb decision by ESPN, and it was. It highlighted the ESPN. I've been saying this for years. I've been reporting this on my show for years that I've had sources in that building, and some of these sources, and we could talk about this off the air, telling me just the level of incompetency in their leadership is absurd. It's ridiculous. Like the people making the decisions, especially for the NBA stuff, they're just out of their league. Like Jason Williams, Kendrick Perkins, like make that make sense.
So Kendrick Perkins is one of my least understandable media entities of my life.
A lot of people say that for good reason.
He makes Booger McFarland look like Walter fucking Cronkite.
McFarland. Yeah, so the point is the Zach Lowe thing. On one hand, it makes perfect sense they did that because they have no idea what they're doing. It's also kind of sad because Zach was one of the good guys in this industry. I've never heard a bad thing about him. And it also highlighted the fact that ESPN, and I've heard this from a lot of people, and I'm sure you have as well, they've screwed the pooch when it comes to developing their podcast business. Like they've never invested in it. They've never, like, you listen to the host doing their podcast and it sounds like they're using their computer microphones. Yeah. Like it is unprofessional. It's weird. You'd think with that level of influence and power and resources and distribution that you would be pumping money into your podcast platform.
Look at how bad, not to go to another sport to prove how bad sometimes television is at covering a sport. The NFL is literally the biggest eyeball magnet on the planet of American sports. Easily. We know that. There's nothing that's even in the conversation. Game 7 of the NBA Finals is dwarfed by halftime shows of NBA games, okay?
You're right.
So why are the halftime shows so bad? Why are the pre- and post-game shows that are on network? They're the most overproduced pieces of shit where you literally have 5 guys who are so established at saying nothing. You have to have a pretend Tom Brady CGI beamed in, even though he now can't say anything as a broadcaster because of his ownership agreement. I mean, I've always said you wouldn't need 9 guys on your set if you had 2 good ones.
You're right. That's ridiculous. How many people they have in those studios? That's absurd. You're right. Why do you need 5 or 6?
By the way, what do you think of Bob Myers, the broadcaster? Since we're
wait, Bob, the guy for Fox?
No, Bob Myers, former Warrior general manager, now with the ESPN.
Oh, I'm Bob so Myers. Sorry. I was thinking of the play-by-play guy who used to be a sideline guy for Fox. Who am I thinking of?
I don't know.
If you remember his name, let me know. Bob Myers, I love him. Every time he's speaking, whether it's in the studio, whether it's as a color commentator, I am glued because he leaks a lot of nuggets of information pertaining to how he thinks as a GM. And I'm all in, man. I absorb every single part of it because his success rate is so absurd. I know he struck out on a lot of late first round picks because he was swinging for the fences with like Patrick Baldwin Jr. and who's the guy they got out of Cincinnati? Jacob Evans.
Striking out on late first round picks is how the NBA works for the most part.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't harp on that.
Congratulations.
yeah, exactly. But my point is even though Mike Dunleavy Jr. has been so far been successful with all his picks, we'll see with Quentin Post, but so far so good. Bob Myers, man, I love it. What about you?
I like Bob an awful lot. I think he's really good. I wish he'd be less protective of the Warrior brand and share even more there. Of course, I lean in for his Warrior information, but the stuff that he gets around the rest of the league, it's really good. I mean, I like Bob. I've always just enjoyed his demeanor. He's reassuring. Bob Myers to me is like It's like an NBA blanket. I want to, it feels good.
There's a reason why players, Draymond Green included, oftentimes would go to him as a confidant, as almost like a mentor. He has that soothing presence. You're right. And for the people in the chat saying James Wiseman, that was as much a Joe Lacob pick. That was as much a Steve Kerr pick as it was a Bob Myers pick. But they did swing and miss.
It was every general manager basically would have taken Bob Myers number 2 overall in that. I mean, I thought it was the right pick at the time. Here's the thing. At the time, it's incredibly defensible. It only becomes undefensible the minute he hit the court after the pick, and it's a disaster. And
you're right. Funny? There was nobody complaining about it at the time. No. It was a lot of optimism. It was a lot of excitement. And then it wasn't until we started seeing him play. And truth is, his rookie year was okay. It wasn't until he got injured. And then clearly mentally, like, something happened because he couldn't hold on to the ball anymore.
Well, look, you got to love what you do to do it well. And James Wiseman has "I'm big enough to be in this league" written all over him, and "I don't want to play basketball for a living" written all over him at the same time. This is just work to him. And
that was a great quote, by the way. You have to be good. You have to love what you do to be good at it. Was that your line?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. If it wasn't, you quote me. I make it better and quote me.
Well, that's a good quote. That's a great.
But I think you do. In sport. Here's the thing. You got to be great. To be great, you got to love what you do. You got to be obsessed by it. You got to want to work on it when absolutely nobody is watching you. Character is who you are when nobody's watching. Well, greatness is what you pursue when no one watches. I don't think James Wiseman spends an awful lot of time working on his game unless it's actual basketball practice.
Yeah.
I think he was a guy from Memphis who was like, "Dude, you're 7 feet tall. You should play basketball." And he's like, "Yeah, that's probably the best way for me to make a butt ton of money. So I will."
And it worked. Congrats.
He was the number 1 prospect from like 7 years old to the day he was drafted. Right. So, normally that's a guy you can bet on.
Yeah.
But didn't happen. He's with the Pacers. Here's what I'm going to love, because I've been so enamored with all things Niners, because I'm so deep into an Indiana football season, which is actually paying off in happiness for the first time in my entire life. I mean, I know that there have been a lot of moving pieces in the NBA, but it's going to take like a week. I'm going to be basically the Charles Barkley "who he play for" segment for like the first 3 weeks of this season. I'm be like, "Oh, he's with them now. Oh yeah." I remember reading about that, but I've totally forgot about it because I wasn't thinking about it because I was doing a million other things. Oh yeah, he's with them now. He's with them. What's going to be my biggest "he's with them now" on the Warriors this year is Buddy Hield. Like, I can't believe Buddy Hield's a goal. I forget that he's a Warrior every single time I look at him. I'm like, "Oh, that's really, really good."
And he's playing so far so damn good. Like,
what kind of year do you think he's going to have?
I think he's going to have here's the beauty of Buddy Hield on the Warriors. Unlike his previous stints with like Indiana and Sacramento, if he has a bad night, you pull him, he's done, and you move on immediately because that's where the depth kicks in. If he's on fire, which he has been for all of one preseason game, great. You write that. And he has looked like a perfect natural fit on this team. He looks happy. We broke the story on Golden Days, Sophia Jones more specifically, that his relationship with Chris DeMarco over the summer in the Olympics, because Buddy Hield was playing with the Bahamas team. And Chris DeMarco, the Warriors assistant, was coaching that team. And Chris DeMarco realized that Buddy Hield is an excellent off-the-ball player, meaning he moves. He's not a standstill type of guy. He's not someone who just sits in the corner waiting for the ball. He's constantly moving, and that wears on a defense. And when Chris DeMarco saw that, that was the push. Chris DeMarco saw that and was like, "Dude, this guy will fit perfectly." I mean, and no one's he's gonna replace Klay Thompson and then some.
Well, and what I really like too is, like you just said, if he's not going well, you can pull him. He's Klay Thompson with an easier to push eject button. For Steve Kerr, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hopefully he'll be that good. Hopefully he will be as good as Klay. Anthony Melton, again, another one of those names that you and I talked about. I think our initial reaction was, but you liked an awful lot of what you've seen from preseason Anthony Melton. And I'll tell you,
here's the thing, dude. The Anthony Melton
defense that he and Draymond could play together as switchers, very interesting.
And what's made me happy, because the initial reaction, for me at least, was a 6'3" guard, like another like little like point guard, but he doesn't play like a 6'3" guard, man. He's a strong dude. He was locking James Harden down early in the preseason. Like he's been a seamless fit for this team. I'm trying to contain my excitement because the depth of this team is a beautiful thing. It's going to be a fun product to watch. I can't believe Charles Barkley and the Inside the NBA on TNT crew is back tonight. I'm buzzing, man. I'm loving this. Hoops is back, baby.
It is back. I am glad Hoops is back. It always makes me happy. It's one of my favorite background noises to have on. I love a basketball game that I'm not even really watching on my TV. That makes me happy. It really, really does. We talked about this very early on in our conversation here today. I think the Warriors are 5 to 10 games better than they were last year based on ball handling alone.
Ooh.
They had, this was why they added Chris Paul. Chris Paul will be the guy who doesn't make the stupid turnovers that Jordan Poole made. And then the opposite happened. The Warriors were even almost sloppier post Jordan Poole era with Chris Paul than they were with Jordan Poole. It was a mess. That's because Klay Thompson can't do anything but dribble forward like Stanley in The Office.
I hate to bag on Klay Thompson, but you could almost see there's like extra weight on him, right? Like he has like he doesn't look like the most well-conditioned athlete. And yeah, people just blow by him. Defensively, he's a problem, dude. And this is where I don't hate Steve Kerr. All I'm saying is sometimes he does things that are head scratchers, like playing Klay Thompson 32 minutes in a game where he was 0 for 10 in that playing against the Kings should not have happened. No. And like you said, which is beautiful, if that was Buddy Hield, you yank his ass after the third miss, right?
Right.
And Kerr could not do that with Klay. It's
Pod season 2 is going to be fascinating again. Ball handler. He can dribble. There's someone who can dribble now other than Steph Curry on this team. Andrew Wiggins, kind of a straight line dribbler. Gary Payton's got some wiggle on him, but he's not going to play enough this year to even matter. I really don't think so.
He might. Like the way Steve Kerr's talking about GP2, like there's a possibility you'll see GP2 actually getting it sounds like GP2's role this year, and I love the idea, and we'll see if it comes into fruition. Is he's going to be like your shutdown cornerback? Like Kerr's going to supposedly, if what I read is true, he's going to use Gary Payton II to be a lockdown defender on the Luka Doncic's of the world. I don't know who you put him on for Portland. I guess it would be a Scoot Henderson, maybe Jeremy Grant. I don't know
Clyde
who.
Drexler, shut down Clyde.
Jerome Kersey, get some Terry Porter in there. Yeah, they're playing the old school Portland Trailblazers.
Draymond's giving up an awful lot of weight to Kevin Duckworth. Good luck on Wednesday night, Draymond.
We're going to the time machine.
How important is it that Draymond stay out of the 5?
Oh, I wouldn't mind it as your death lineup.
5.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it as your death lineup. Like I know I mentioned Trace Jackson Davis is the player I'd like to see, but in all likelihood, that won't be the case. You'll see Dray. I don't mind it at the end of games. The Warriors have a dynasty because of it, right? I mean, you can't hate on it. But Draymond himself this offseason said he's comfortable at the 4. He prefers playing the 4. He prefers not being the center on this team for heavy minutes, right? And it makes sense, dude. Like, I mean, the guy's back went out on him 2 years ago when we saw him playing those heavy center minutes. Like, no, he's good as a 4 in my book, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this. But as you're closing with those final minutes, yeah, he can handle the bigs. He can do that.
When you have you'll be better if you can get faster at the 5 and run the other center off the court, he's your right guy.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, you got an actual center who can run. And I am so excited about year 2 of Trace Jackson Davis.
Oh,
again, I watched every single game he ever played at Indiana and the incremental growth. I mean, the what he was his first year at IU, what he was his second year, his third year, his senior year. I mean, he only gets better. And I am telling you right now that Trace Jackson Davis is going to be a force multiplier that I don't think a lot of people think of. A lot of people think like, oh, you're going to put Trace in there and he'll do the job. No, that's what Looney did. I think he's going to do a lot more than just the job. I think he's going to stand out in an awful lot of games where he gets the opportunity to do that. I'm so excited for year 2 of Trace, and watch him have a little bit of a corner 3 this year. I heard he's got one.
I've heard that. I don't expect it, but don't expect to see it. It would shock me. He grew an inch this offseason. Have you talked about that on your show? Like, who does that at 24, 25? He grew an inch and had growing pains this offseason. That's Trayce Jackson-Davis. The Warriors played back-to-back games against Sacramento this preseason. And Trayce Jackson, and this was the greatest contrast between Trayce Jackson-Davis and Kevon Looney, because they were both playing defense on Domantas Sabonis, one of the best bigs in the game. Kevon Looney was getting owned, like he always does, playing these elite bigs who actually have an offensive game. Trayce Jackson-Davis, his defense was superb. And he led the team last year in field goal percentage. He only missed, I think, 3 shots the entire preseason. Don't quote me on that. That's not off memory. But the point is, dude, he is a legitimate big. He's a legitimate center. To me, the ideal move for the Warriors to make this year is to upgrade Kevon Looney. Like, I'm comfortable and happy with Trayce Jackson-Davis as your starting 5. I wouldn't mind a backup 5. Like, if Quentin Post can turn into that, it's not going to happen this year, folks. I promise you that. But in the near future, he could be it. But for now, someone to give Trayce Jackson-Davis some relief as a stretch 5 and who can play defense, because Kevon Looney cannot D up these elite bigs. I think that's the only move you got to make, man, and you're set. And I don't know who that is. I don't know if I've looked at Vucevic with the Chicago Bulls. I think he would be an awesome option to trade. Like, a Wiggins for Vucevic straight up trade would be ideal, in my opinion. Then he's your backup 5 and you're set. He would be ideal for that. But the point is, Trayce Jackson-Davis, Maron. He is awesome, dude. Your boy is going to rock the world this year. I love it. I can't wait to see it.
What's your gut tell you about the year? Just try to predict it before we even see it.
Don't aggregate my prediction now because I need to see it. This is too new of a team. 50 wins, like right at 50. And if they make a move, like one more move, legitimate contender status. If they don't make a move, anything goes. But I think they're a 50-win playoff team. Like, I think they're better than Sacramento right now. I really do. I know that's kind of crazy to say, but I think they're better than Sacramento. I think they're in the same conversation with like Houston, New Orleans. They're like a middle of the pack playoff team. Like, they're not in Minnesota's status. Even with Denver being thinned out, I don't think they're quite in Denver's league. They're certainly not in OKC's league, but they're below that, man. They're in the conversation for that next tier. And I think that's a beautiful thing. What are your thoughts?
I really want to answer this question 2 months into this season.
Yeah,
because I think they got to stack early wins. They really got to stack early wins, and they got to do that with a level of defensive effort that nobody in the league is choosing to make. They got to be a defense-first basketball team again.
Yeah.
And, I mean, everybody in the league is dropping 117 to 125 a night. The whole fucking league is averaging 118 points per game this season, right? So points are just everywhere. What do you do with 5-6 crucial defensive possessions? Do you get the rebound? Did you flush the fast break? And that's where the Warriors' entire season is. Transition, connectivity, something that Kerr talked about not having. Guess what? It's going to be a lot easier to connect shit when you got a couple guys who can handle the ball. You know, I mean, it's. I think they're going to be a better transition team. I think they're going to be a little bit better in the half court. Or I could be wrong about all of it, and they're going to run into a team like the Denver Nuggets and get absolutely steamrolled by younger, wants it more, is better now officially teams that are out there. I mean, the Oklahoma City Thunder are becoming a very, there's no hiding the Oklahoma City Thunder anymore, Cyrus. Everybody's talking about them. Let's see what the Celtics look like. Let's see what the new look 76ers look like when they all get healthy and out on the court together.
Like, tonight's matchups are awesome, dude. Like, we're getting a Celtics-Knicks game, like, to start the season. I'm elated for that. I want to see Karl Anthony Towns in a Knicks jersey, and then we get Lakers Timberwolves as the nightcap. So at least we get Anthony Edwards against LeBron. Here's the thing: I'm so glad you have the schedule up because last year the Warriors had literally. This is not exaggeration. This is not hyperbole. The Warriors literally had the most difficult first half schedule in the NBA last year. That is not the case this year. So going at the play-in tournament, the mid-season tournament, or whatever they're calling it now, the NBA Cup, that the Warriors got a really tough draw there. Like every team in their draw is a playoff contender. You don't get Utah or Portland in your draw, sadly. So, but leading into the NBA Cup, that midseason tournament in early December or whenever it is, November, the Warriors should be able to pull off some wins. They better, because if they screw up the season early, then the tone changes immediately.
If they have to chase the tiger's tail all year long, it's going to be so much harder. But I'll tell you what makes me a little bit nervous here, though. Look at the beginning of the schedule.
Yeah.
7 of their first 10 games are on the road. So they're going to be road warriors right away. And then they come home for the Dallas Mavericks, Klay Thompson emotional explosion game.
That's the midseason tournament. Yeah, that's where it's November is when it starts. So look, break it down right here, right? Portland should be a W.
Yep.
Utah should be a W. Clippers. Side note, by the way, with the Clippers, these idiots, that trade that they made to get Paul George, the OKC Thunder have a pick swap with the Clippers this upcoming season. The Clippers are due for a massive letdown season. They could be one of the worst teams in the NBA this year. If they end up with the number 1 pick, that goes to OKC. OKC could have the team they have now and get Cooper flagged next year. Congrats to the LA Clippers for bungling that trade, one of the worst trades ever. Whatever. The point is, you look at that schedule, 3-0. They should be 3-0 to start the season. Those New Orleans games, hopefully they split those. They should hopefully beat Houston. They better beat Washington. So by the time you get to Boston, you should be like a 7-2 team.
I hope so.
I hope so.
I hope so. What I do know
are there though, right? Boston, Cleveland, OKC, Dallas, Memphis.
That's a brutal run. That's a brutal stretch right
there. Yeah. So they need a good start. What's
Memphis going to be this year? I mean, seriously,
that's a wild card, dude. Some people think they're going to be great. Some people, they're like the Warriors in the sense that I need to see it, man. Right? I mean, we don't know what version of John Morant. John Morant could have like a Derrick Rose type of career where he's so athletic, like he fly like. He needs to just calm down, dude, because every time he jumps in the air like that, it's the landing that messes your knees up, dude. Like, you don't need to go all out like that every play. So if Jaw's healthy, who knows? But it's a big if. What are your thoughts, man?
I mean, is John Morant going to actually dedicate himself to becoming one of the best players in this league again? Or is he going to be caught up on Instagram and nonsense? And is he the mature guy in the room setting the tone to win, or is he a buffoon?
Yep.
Because whatever John Morant is, that's what the Grizzlies are going to be. We all know that, right?
Yes, sir.
I can't wait to watch a month of basketball to start getting a feel for the league. I watched a little Warrior preseason game. I didn't watch very much of it. I mean, I'm deep into so many other things. 2 freaking kids, blah blah blah. Didn't have a lot of time for preseason basketball, but here we officially go, and I'm really excited. And Cyrus, let's kind of set a schedule right here, right now. Let's do something together, like every 10 games or so.
Is once a week too much for you? Like once every other week?
No, I mean, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not too much for me. So
let's do it. I'm in. You say when, brother. I love work. I love it. To me, I like to give the people what they want. I feel like every time we do a show together, the people love it. So let's give them what they want, man. Let's do it every week. I'll roll with you. You say when, I'm there.
When are we going to do the backyard spliffs in the air NBA recap show? Should we just do one of these shows from my backyard, high as fuck?
Let's do it. I'm in. Say when.
All right, say when.
My old network would have objected to that. My current network pretty much lets me do whatever I want. So I'm in. Let's do it.
Yeah. Locked on these nuts is what.
Yeah, F them, dude. Yeah, that's a ridiculous place. Damon, I love doing this with you, brother. I can't believe we went over an hour. I had no idea how long we went.
We've been doing an hour. God, that went by in 50. I thought we were like 15 minutes in. This was
that was ridiculous.
It's always good to see you, brother. It really, really is. We're having a whose beard can go grayer off.
I know, dude. I know. I hate it. Aging's a bitch. Aging is a bitch. What are you gonna do, right?
You know
what can you do
at all? I was just talking to him too. Sam Batesh. Remember Sammy?
Yeah, of course. He's one of my best friends.
Sam is still, I mean, dude, if he's not using Grecian formula, he's got all the DNA a man could use. I mean, he is just still not a fleck of gray in that gorgeous head of hair of his. I hate him.
He's got grays. He's graying. You're right. It's not like us, but he's got a new show with What's the little elf? What's his name? The guy who's
Andrew
used to do NFL Red Zone. Andrew Siciliano.
The little elf. Oh my God.
Andrew Siciliano.
Yeah, they're going to be joining me during the bye week, so I'll let them know you said hi in a very elfish way.
Sorry about that.
Good to see you, brother. Hey, on the way out, if there's one thing that I do know sponsors like, they like intros, they like outros. So one last time, let me tell you, everyone, get yourself a delicious sandwich at Ike's. There's a location near you, and if there isn't, call a mayor, call a congressman, call the cops. Make sure that there's an Ike coming to your hometown soon. Sign up for that new rewards program, get a free sandwich when you do that, and enter yourself in a contest that could be sending you to a very large football game in New Orleans. There he is. Look at this. It's your Vanna Whiting, my Ike presentation. Yes. Thank you very much. Oh, look at him framing it. That's so very, very nice. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but when I was making the thumbnail for today's show, on my thumbnail, I know you made your own one. On mine, I had your Golden Days logo. Right your Golden Days logo with my logo over it, and my logo was overlapped by your logo when I put it there, and I thought, that looks like a record falling out of an album cover.
I'm going to check it out right now.
Yeah,
I'm fascinated.
It's just in the corner, but it looks like somebody's pulling a record out of an old album cover. So I left it. I'm like, oh, that looks cool. I think I'm just rocking that. But thanks so much to Ike's for all of his love, his support, his sponsorship, and his delicious sandwiches. Hopefully you plan on joining us at the Dubliner November 3rd, Plus Mania 5, the Plusening. It's going to be going down at the Dubliner. We are going to eschew today's history lesson to just let you know that with all this NBA action coming up, if you got to make a play, go over to BetUS, get 150% sign up bonus right now. YouTube 1050 is the promo code to give you 150% sign up bonus up to $2,000 on your first deposit, 125% up to $2,000 on your next two deposits. Those are our good friends at BetUS. And Cyrus, hit them with the sponsors.
Oh no, I'm good. I only have to do it at the beginning. So, and I don't want to conflict with yours. I already read mine. So I'm good, brother.
I don't get. Just go ahead.
I'll leave it with this. Ike's is the best sandwich in the Bay Area and maybe everywhere else. For all I know, I don't know where all their locations are, but Ike's is fantastic. You're lucky to have a sponsor that you can be honest and genuine with in your reads, because sometimes we have sponsors where we have to fake it. You don't have to fake it with Ike's. Delicia.
Try the all-new McChicken. Thank you, Ike. Thank you, Cyrus. Thanks to everyone watching. Thanks to everyone in there. Do we miss any super chats? No, not today. Cheap audience. Screw all you guys. Thank you very, very much. And great to see you, Cyrus. We'll do it again real soon. That's our guy. And please do remember, sports don't build character. They reveal it. Hold on. And
good show, man. Good fucking show.
we're done. We're off.
Yeah.
I always like to make